On a warm June morning in 1996, the life of 18-year-old Angie Dodge came to a brutal, senseless end. It would begin in the quiet town of Idaho Falls, clean, peaceful, familiar, and end with a crime scene so shocking it stunned investigators. But the true story would not stop there. It would span decades of confusion, injustice, heartbreak, cutting-edge forensic science, and finally, a breakthrough that would change the way cold cases are solved. This is the story of Angie Dodge, what happened to her, who was wrongly convicted, and how the truth finally caught up with the real killer. Angie Ray Dodge was born December 21, 1977, a vibrant young woman with a bright future ahead of her. She loved the outdoors, her family, her friends, and at that moment in her life, independence. As her mother, Carol Dodge, recalled, she was just discovering who she truly was and wanting independence. Just let me grow up. 3 weeks before her death, Angie had moved out of the family home into her own apartment in Idaho Falls. She'd started a job at a local beauty supply store. Her friends described her as smart, fun-loving, and fiercely loyal. One friend said, "Nobody got in her face because she would take care of you." As Angie set foot into adulthood, the world seemed open to her. But sometime after dark 2 nights later, her dream ended and the nightmare began. On the morning of June 13, 1996, Angie did not show up for work at the beauty supply shop. A friend entered her unlocked, second-floor apartment and found her body. What followed was one of the most horrific crime scenes investigators had ever seen. Detective Jeff Pratt later said, "It was probably the worst case I had ever worked, the most horrific scene." Angie had been brutally raped and stabbed multiple times, 14 wounds by one account, and her throat so deeply cut she was nearly decapitated. A stuffed teddy bear sat soaked in her blood. A bloody handprint was left on a wall. There was no sign of forced entry. This was the calculated act of a predator. At the scene, investigators lifted the killer's DNA, a pristine profile, as one expert called it, and samples of hair and semen providing a single male suspect identification. Investigators initially focused on the people closest to Angie, the boyfriend she'd had for just a few weeks, friends who gathered by the Snake River, and known associates in the area. Police gathered dozens of DNA samples. Over 100 extracts were taken, yet none matched the profile found at the scene. In 2003, Idaho Falls police released a DNA phenotype composite sketch, hoping the image would trigger public leads. In the early days, no one dreamed the case would languish for decades. But that is exactly what happened. In January 1997, 20-year-old Christopher Tapp was brought in for questioning. Over nearly 60 hours and a total of 9 separate sessions, he was pushed, pressured, confronted with polygraph failures, threats of the death sentence if he did not confess. Eventually, Tapp confessed to being inside Angie's apartment the night of the killing, claiming a friend started the stabbing while he held her down. Yet his DNA did not match the samples from the scene. No physical evidence tied him to the rape or murder. Still, in May 1998, a jury found him guilty of rape and murder. He was sentenced to 30 years to life. His mother described the verdict as sadness, pure sadness. For 20 years, Angie's family, Christopher Tapp, and the community carried that sentence, while the true killer remained free. As one advocate noted, "If there was ever a case that speaks to the proposition that when someone confesses you must verify, this is it." Despite the conviction, the DNA profile collected in 1996 remained unchanged, still unmatched, a silent testament that the killer was still out there. Enter genetic genealogy. In 2014, investigators began using public DNA databases to search for relatives of the unknown DNA profile. Parabon Nanolabs and genealogist C.C. Moore built extensive family trees and zeroed in on a suspect. In May 2019, police collected a discarded cigarette, but from one man. Balancing forensic patience and modern technology, that cigarette gave the match. The suspect lived just across the street from Angie at the time. On May 15, 2019, 55-year-old Brian Lee Dripps Sr. was arrested. He lived in Caldwell, just outside Idaho Falls, but in 1996 he had resided across the street from Angie's apartment. In a plea hearing on February 9, 2021, Dripps admitted, "All I really know is I went over there with the intent to rape her. I didn't mean to murder her." Yet he would not deny cutting her throat. During sentencing on June 8, 2021, he was given a life term, with eligibility for parole after 20 years. In court, Angie's brother Todd laid a crime scene photo on the floor and told the judge, "That crime scene is speaking. Angie is crying out asking you to hear her voice." For the Dodge family, after 25 years of waiting, it was a moment of relief. Justice long delayed, but at last delivered. In 2017, Christopher Tapp's murder conviction was vacated, and by 2019, he was fully exonerated. Cite: in June 2022, the city of Idaho Falls agreed to a settlement of approximately $11.7 million to compensate Tapp for his wrongful incarceration of nearly 2 decades. Beyond the personal cost, this case became a landmark for modern forensic practice. Genetic genealogy won the day, but at the same time raised tough questions about privacy, DNA databases, and law enforcement oversight. Carol Dodge, Angie's mother, became a relentless advocate. "Grief has no time limit. I can't let go of her." This story teaches us many lessons. The cost of a rushed justice system, the power of science, the persistence of a mother's love, and the responsibility we all bear to seek truth. Angie Dodge never got to fully grow up, to make mistakes, to live her story of independence and promise. Her death shook a town, changed lives, and ultimately helped change investigative tools. But for every case solved, there are countless others waiting. This one ended with long-delayed justice, but it also serves as a stark reminder. When the system falters, innocent lives are lost. If something here resonates, a name, a technique, a question, then remember, justice is not only about punishment, it's about truth. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Crime Logic Uncovered for more deep dive investigations. Check the description for sources and further reading. And if you believe in justice, share this story so Angie's voice continues to be heard.